Hello friends, Josh here again for my second installment of my top 25 records of 2019. Last time I did numbers 25 through 16, so this time I'll be doing numbers 15 through number 6, and then I'll do a third in this series, which will be my top 5. The first one that I'm going to be talking about for this series is number 15, which is the band Vukari. With their album titled Aevum. I was first introduced to Bukhari back in 2016 through someone gifted it to me through the Metal Bandcamp Gift Club. If you do not know what that is, Google it. There was some interviews and stuff about it. And there was, if you search Twitter for it, there's a Twitter account for Metal Bandcamp Gift Club. Join that. It's basically just a bunch of awesome music fans sharing music with each other. So definitely check that out. You'll find things like Vukari. I liked Vukari's previous material, but I feel like the band really leveled up with Aevum. The first thing I noticed about Aevum over prior material was that the production was just so much better. And that's not to say that any of their prior releases that the production was bad. In fact, I think it fit the music a lot on their prior releases. But for this one, I feel like they really matured a lot in their songwriting. And they really took their time to flesh out each and every part of every song and take their time to let every song breathe and to build naturally. It really seems like they had a stronger sense of passion and emotion when writing this album. So I really appreciated that they seem to have also done more with the production just to better capture the emotion and the energy that they're putting forth on this record. With Aevum, Vukari, I feel, took a much more mature approach to their songwriting. Just waves and waves of amazing layered atmospheric riffs. Just gorgeous and shimmering. Very, very dark, and foreboding a lot of times, but at the same time just beautiful and pristine. If you haven't heard it yet, I would say to wait until you have a full 55 minutes available to listen to the album in its entirety. It will definitely be worth it. Just put it on and just get lost in the beauty of this record. So definitely check out Bukhari. Okay, and with that, I will move to number 14, which is the band Yellow Eyes with their album Rare Field Ceiling. This is another band that I've been a fan of for quite some time. They put this record out along with others on Gilead Media. If you don't know Gilead, there's multiple records that come to us from Gilead on my list for this year, as it seems there is every year. Adam from Gilead is super nice and just has a knack for finding just truly fantastic and original albums from great bands to put out on his label. So check out everything on the label, but for right now, Yellow Eyes, I don't really know what I can really say to do them justice. I feel that Yellow Eyes, with this album, more than any other album that I listened to this year, has the best chance of catching the attention and love of the second wave black metal purist fans, or the new black metal hipster fans like me. I think it does a great job of melding what each of those groups is looking for in a truly great record. It just captures that beautifully. Yellow Eyes makes black metal that feels very familiar, but it is still set apart from any other band, in my opinion. It's melodic, but it's dissonant. It entrances you. It has a feeling of unease throughout the entire record, but at the same time it feels quite reverent and spiritual almost. definitely jam this record and do everything that you can to see this band live. They are absolutely fantastic live and truly kind and gracious human beings. So definitely check out Yellow Eyes. With that, I'll move to number 13, which is Mysþyrming. I don't really. This is another going back to things that I don't know how to pronounce. I even looked up a woman who is from Iceland saying the band name to try to get the pronunciation correctly, but I am failing. So apologies. I will also butcher the album title, which was Algleymi. I'll put it down there so that you can read it and search for it yourself. I got into this band back in 2015 with their album Songvar Elds or Oraidu. Totally butchered it. Don't worry about it. Find it. It's fantastic. That album is in probably my top 3 black metal albums of all time. So to say that I was excited to hear this album is quite an understatement. This album is completely stacked with just absolutely gorgeous melodic black metal riffs. The riffs have such an urgent sense of victory to them, almost like the one scene makes me think of the one scene in Lord of the Rings where the good guys' army is getting their butts kicked and it seems like all hope is lost, and then you hear the horns coming over the mountain range as the cavalry arrives. That sense of just like relief and victory is, I feel, very present in like every riff on this album. I hear less dissonance in this album than I did in the first album that I checked out by them, but I do not take that as a negative. There was many parts of their previous album that while it is one of my favorite black metal records of all time, there were many parts of it that completely lost me. That album Songvar would go from one of the best black metal riffs that I had ever heard and then immediately be followed by something that I did not understand its placement or even the song writing what made them write that immediately after such a fantastic riff. So for this album, Algleymi, their songwriting feels much more focused and consistent across the board. There was nothing on this album that stuck out to me as out of place or from start to finish was just completely enthralled with every part of every song. So definitely check out this band. They're fantastic, and pick up their new record. With that, I'll move to my number 12 pick, which is the band Miscarriage with the album Imminent Horror. Miscarriage has a bunch of prior albums that I would say is kind of like run-of-the-mill grindcore, just noisy, kind of lo-fi almost, but very fast and brutal and filthy. But with this album, Miscarriage have done something that I don't think they've ever done before, where they seem to have gone way farther in the filth and just like the hostility and it's just pure hatred. But they've slowed it down to a very slow doom pace for the entire album. It's a shocking level of hatred that is both nauseating and intoxicating. They somehow managed to combine the oral filth, not oral, but aural filth of Pissgrave, the crushing heaviness of Primitive Man, and then the disorienting just insanity of the band Scafé. I always pronounce it Scaife, but apparently it's pronounced Scafé. And even though I feel like some of the influences are pretty apparent in their songwriting, this album is unlike anything that I've ever heard. I will say this is one of the most absolutely most vile and disgusting pieces of music that I've ever heard. I wouldn't expect that even your average metal fan or extreme metal fan would get into this, but if you know, if you like bands like Pissgrave and Scafé and Primitive Man, the odds are that you will be both surprised and elated with what Miscarriage have done with Imminent Horror. So definitely check out this record. It's available through Sentient Ruin Laboratories, which is another great record label. So check out, especially in 2019, they put out a lot of great records. So check out that label and their entire discography. With that, I will move to number 11 on my list, which is the band Barshasketh with their self-titled fourth record. This is another band that I had never listened to their prior material before this one dropped in my inbox. I haven't branched out enough to listen to their prior material because I'm still just so excited and just fixated on this album. It is absolutely fantastic. I would categorize Barshasketh in the more recent emergence of black metal bands who are equally as influenced by death metal as much as they are by black metal. Barshasketh is a little more technical than most of the records that I got into this year. But I don't want to say that is taking anything away from their craftsmanship of these songs and the atmosphere that they create. I feel that every member of this band is incredibly talented, but isn't showboating or anything like that. Each member knows how to do just enough to contribute to the overall sound, to do what's best for the song. I especially feel that the bass player stands out with his performance. I usually do not notice, bass apart from the rest of the song. I just feel it contributing, to the overall sound of a song because I don't play anything with strings. But the bass player stands out and just does a phenomenal performance on this record, more so than I'm used to hearing with bands of this type. So definitely check out Barshasketh. With that, I will move to my number 10 pick, which is the band Aoratos with the album Gods Without Name. So I say band, but I think this is a solo project, or at least the vocals, the guitar, the bass, everything, I believe, except for the drums, are written and performed by Kyle Spanswick, who you might recognize from bands like Akley's, Bestia Arcana, and Nightbringer. I feel that Aoratos is more similar to Akley's than Spanswick's other projects. If this album, Gods Without Name, had been put under Akley's, the Akley's name, I would not have been surprised. I think it would have been a pretty good follow-up to prior material. But I do feel that with this record that Spanswick leans farther into death metal than he does with Akley's. But anything that man does, in my opinion, is fantastic and should be paid attention to. So check out all of his bands. But I feel like Aoratos, Akley's, and Bestia Arcana are untouchable. So if you're unfamiliar with Spanswick's other work, definitely start with those three bands. With that, I will move to my number 9 pick. This is another release from Gilead Media. This album was one of my most highly anticipated albums of the year. This band had my number 5 spot in 2016. With their prior album, Yod. The band is Mizmor, and the album title is Cairn. Cairn is a wonderful continuation of both the musical and spiritual journey of artist A.L.N., who is the sole songwriter and performer on the record behind the band name Mizmor. You might recognize ALN for work that he has done with the bands Urziat and Hell. If you're not familiar, both are fantastic bands, both very different than Mizmor, so definitely look up those bands as well. I also would recommend, I referenced the spiritual journey of ALN. I recommend Googling the interviews that he did for the press cycle of Cairn. The interviews are very insightful, and I think paint a more detailed picture of why the music performed under Mizmor is just so just heartbreaking and full of sorrow. Definitely check that out. Anyway, this record rules. I feel that with Mizmor that ALN he's not trying to hide his influences in songwriting. It is black, it is depressive, it is doomy. It's beautiful. There's just a level of sorrow and mourning and loss that's in the songwriting for Mizmor. So nothing sounds like Mizmor to me. Mizmor is one of my biggest musical influences, and this album, just like Yod, I feel perfectly captures why I love this band so much. So definitely check out this record and pick up the vinyl. The vinyl double album for this is absolutely beautiful. This is also the third release on my top 25 list that features artwork from Maurice Lewandowski. Absolutely beautiful artwork. So as I've said before, go check out that artist, follow him. All the work that he does is fantastic. With that, I will move to my number 8 pick, which is the band Sinmara with the album Hvísl Stjarnanna. Very sorry. It's totally not how it's pronounced. This is, if you can't tell by the name and my lack of ability to pronounce anything involved with this band, it should tell you that this is another band that's part of that wonderful Icelandic black metal scene that they have over there. Sinmara is a band that I had checked out just whenever I was first getting exposed to the amazing black metal scene in Iceland. And they had ties to Mysþyrming, whatever. So I had liked this band previously, but in 2018, one of the biggest reasons I was going to Maryland Death Fest was to see Mysþyrming, and they had dropped out due to, I believe, visa issues right before the festival. So I was super bummed, but then Sinmara was going to take their slot from them. Seeing Sinmara live, I was like no longer disappointed that, I mean, I would still like to see Mysþyrming, but Sinmara like really won me over as a huge fan, seeing them live at Maryland Death Fest. I absolutely loved them. This band sounds like they've been together for, decades, and that they've been professional songwriters for decades. And that may be. They share members with other Icelandic black and death metal bands, from members of like Rebirth of Nefast and Wormlust and a bunch of other fantastic bands that I can't pronounce. So with this record, Hvísl Stjarnanna, they have brought me, or they have presented to me my favorite black metal release of 2019. And when I say that, I mean my favorite black metal release that's not like a doomy black metal or a blackened death metal or something like that. Like, this is purely just a black metal release, and it is perfect. This album is cold. It's transcendent. It's glorious. It's depraved, and it is maddening. To me, this is the black metal album of 2019. So definitely go check it out. With that, I will move to my number 7 pick, which is the band Andavald. And the album title is Undir skyggðarhaldi, which, if you can't tell, this is another band from Iceland. This is the first record that I listened to from this band. I believe it might be, I think it's their first release actually. This is one of those records that when I listen to it, I feel silly that I've referred to any other bands as being extreme metal. As far as extreme metal goes, this is something that is different. It is beyond. It is, you know, above or below, however you want to put it. It is just absolutely crushing. When I first put it on, I got goosebumps, and it just felt like worms crawling beneath my skin. This album reminds me so much of the band Scafe, which is one of my absolute favorite bands, but it is still so different. The vocals, especially on this record, are just perfect. They are tortured and they are emotional. They have that very familiar black metal sound that many black metal artists use, but it's just the register, the range, just the emotion that the artist gets across is just far beyond what I'm used to hearing in a black metal record. There are so many horrific and beautiful layers of guitar with, you know, a whole bunch of different like crazy effects and just building these insane soundscapes that are just absolutely gorgeous and horrifying at the same time. The album just feels so. The album just feels so expansive. Just it feels massive. But with all of this, with all these different layers, with this emotional performance, you know, and the extreme tag that I'm labeling it with, I find it very interesting that the drummer just sits back and just plays at almost a relaxed pace, I would say, just to allow the vocals and the guitar, all the layers of guitar, to really shine. The drums are played at almost a doomy pace, and I think in the full 36 minutes of this record, I think there's one blasting part in the whole record. So, which I found very interesting, but I really appreciate the room that the drummer leaves for the rest of the members of the band to build these songs. So even though, like I said, I think this is their first record, again, very, very interesting, very intricate, just a completely stellar record. With this record, I feel that Andavald have completely solidified themselves as earning a place in the fantastic black metal scene in Iceland. I really feel like that Icelandic scene is unparalleled in any other scene or country. Each band is so different, but they are all perfect. I really, with all of these bands in Iceland have been doing over the last almost 10 years, I'd say, I don't know why people still talk about Swedish and Norwegian black metal so much. For me, Iceland is where it's at. So definitely check out this record. I promise that it will be unlike anything else that you listen to in 2019. With that, I will move to the last band and release that I'm going to talk about today. Number 6 on my list is Knocked Loose with the album A Different Shade of Blue. I know that this band and this release is a lot different than most of the bands that I usually talk about, either on my year-end lists or any other time. Knocked Loose, especially for me, with their last record, was kind of a guilty pleasure. I don't really have guilty pleasures, but if I did, it would have been one. They had all the breakdowns that we've heard a million times before. They had these silly like call-outs or that the vocalist would do before the breakdowns, like "you jerk" or things like that. They had a song called "Counting Worms" that the vocalist just goes arf arf, and it sounds like it immediately reminded me of DMX the first time I heard it, and I just started laughing. But this record, A Different Shade of Blue, this album is a continuation of their prior material. It's not that different or anything, but I feel like the riffs on this album, there actually are riffs on this album, and they are awesome. Vocalist Brian Garris on this record sounds even more confident. He has this very high-pitched hardcore shouting or screaming that he does that is absolutely fantastic. Just perfect delivery for this style of music. This album has guest vocals from Keith freaking Buckley, which is one of my personal heroes. So any record that Keith Buckley is lending his talent to, I feel is worth anyone's time. It has guest vocals from Emma of the band Dying Wish, which is a newer hardcore band that I've gotten into recently, mostly just because her vocals are absolutely fantastic, just interesting and just really just filled with just such rage. I love her vocals, but so not only am I not afraid to admit how much I love Knocked Loose with this record, this is the record that also makes me I guess I feel comfortable outing myself in 2019 as being fully about this resurgence or this revival of kind of like that early 2000s metalcore sound that a lot of bands like Knocked Loose or Code Orange, Jesus Piece, See You Space Cowboy, bands like that are doing. Like, I love all of these bands. I love what they're doing, and I am so here for it. If it's not your thing, I completely understand. Knocked Loose for me has like exactly what I want to hear on a metalcore or like a hardcore album. It had me, in my computer chair, like headbanging or fist pumping or like wanting to circle pit around my living room. Like, Knocked Loose knows what it takes to write just like a really fun hardcore record, and they've done it flawlessly. Something else I wanted to bring up about Knocked Loose was that last month or so, I had the opportunity to go with my wife to go see them perform, headline at a local venue called Mr. Smalls, and they were so good. Absolutely owning the stage. They look like they are veterans that belong on giant festival stages and things like that. They own it. They have such amazing energy. Such great chemistry. I will say that the one guitar player who's also a backing vocalist, Cole Crutchfield, he does like death growls on the record, and live he was doing like little call outs to pump up the crowd and stuff in the death growl voice that just made me laugh hysterically, because he would be like, "There you go, Pittsburgh," or "1, 2, 3, mosh," like things like that, and like my wife and I would just crack up. But it was all part of what just made it just a super fun show. The other thing I would say is that everyone was at this show. Like, it was a packed house, and it was people of all age range, nationalities, backgrounds, sexual orientations and genders. Like, there were metal kids, there were hardcore kids, there were punk kids, there were, like people that looked like they were more into hip hop or, whatever. Like, it was just really great to see a band as young as Knocked Loose able to bring like people from all different scenes, all different backgrounds together, and just have the absolute best time. So definitely check out Knocked Loose. If you haven't yet, go see them if they're playing anywhere near you, and prepare to have just like the best time. So with that, that is the last band I was going to talk about for today. I will do another installment of this probably in a week or so, just to talk about my top 5 records of 2019. But thank you for watching. If you haven't seen the first installment of this video series, go back and watch where I talk about my records 25 through number 16 for 2019. A lot of great records there. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my picks, or you know, if you think I missed something, or if you think I'm an idiot for putting any of these on here. If you know the pronunciations of any of the things that I butchered, a lot of people corrected me on the last one, which I appreciated. Thank you for watching. See you soon.